There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to have this meeting because there's a lot of noise out in the internet right now with NAR and how the housing market's going to look next year. So I wanted to get a little bit of context around that. And that's why I invited Terry Weitzel, especially to join us and see if you guys had any questions once Terry finishes speaking. But just to give you a little bit of an update, come into the meeting in Savannah a few weeks ago with NAR regional meeting, and Dr. Lawrence Yun, the chief economist, brought up 2024 and mentioned that he predicts that along with housing and urban development predicts housing sales should go up around 10 to 12% in volume next year. Now, again, I challenge you to be vigilant on the places you get your information from. I always compare it to Fox and NBC when it comes to politics. One's going to say one thing, one's going to say another. So, as you know, the media they get clicks based off of doom and gloom. So, be vigilant on what you see. I want to challenge you to educate yourself on the facts and not off of what the media is saying. That way you can educate your clients on what the market's going to look like next year. But from our standpoint, Dr. Yun's projections are for, again, his numbers are national. We all know that real estate is hyper local. One of the good things about being in our area, we are blessed to be in the third fastest growing state in the nation and right in the middle of probably the fastest growing area in this state outside of Raleigh and Cary. So from a national standpoint, we are top of the top when it comes to growth. So that's a good thing. People continue to move in this area. So we got that advantage too. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Terry. Terry, if you don't mind.
All right. Hey everybody. Sorry, my camera is messed up on my dual monitor setup here, so I don't have a video for you guys, but I am going to screen share a bunch of stuff anyway. So y'all probably rather see the screen than me as it is. Is it all right to go on and take the screen, Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right. Melissa, can you enable me? It won't let it's saying it's disabled. But what I would on to what Chris was saying too is, I've been in this business for 15 years. The year that I got into this business was the end of 2007. I got into mortgage Thanksgiving week 2007, and everybody knows what happened right after that. So the immediate question that I always got is, gosh, what were you thinking? You went into it at the worst time. Well, no, I feel like I went into it at the best time. Mm-hmm. Because everybody was coming off of, you could pretty much, if you could breathe, you could get a mortgage, and all of the changes meant that was changes for everybody, and I didn't know anything. So it enabled me to go in with a clean slate and learn stuff that even people that had done it 20 years didn't know, anymore. So to me, that's what you just got to look at. You got to look at what you can sell. There's always something to sell. It's our job to sell, whether it's mortgages or houses. And there's still people buying. I keep looking back, even now, I feel like volume wise, everybody's down, but fairly across the board, we're a nationwide company and we only have like 2.5% of the market share of the mortgages that are out there. So there's still a ton of business that we're not getting. So we just got to figure out how to, put our head down and get the ones that we're not working with to work with us. And that goes for you guys and for us. Y'all are going to have changes with what's going on with the NAR, but I almost feel like it may not even be much of a change other than, you know, the documents probably that people sign going in, the verbiage that you guys use when you're doing listing agreements. And I feel like most of you are doing that anyway, the right way. It probably just boils down to a handful of attorneys, you know, caught wind of some wrongdoing somewhere and used it to make a bunch of money for themselves. And you know, when I was in education, I always pointed to politicians setting educational policies that had never stepped foot in schools. And you know, you kind of got the same going on right now with what we have here today with NAR now. Can you guys see the screen with the Fannie Mae National Association of Realtors and Mortgage Bankers Association? You seeing that right now?
Yes, sir.
All right. So like Chris was saying, with Lawrence Young, that's what, you know, they're projecting rates next year to be, you know, close to 6. The Mortgage Bankers Association, even better, they're saying by the end of the year next year, we'll be in the, you know, low to mid 5s. Fannie Mae is saying somewhere in the low to mid 6s.
Mortgage rate will be in the 6s, they're predicting.
I feel like any of those, we can do good business. You know, this year, the way it has flowed for me is I've averaged about 10.5 closings a month all year long. I could tell you when rates went over 7 by the volume of phone calls coming in and credit reports that I pulled. Every time we went over 7, volume slowed, phone calls slowed, credit pulls slowed, you know, and this is kind of what they're expecting. Let me show you where we have been over the course of this year. Let me get to it here. So if you look, this is the market overview. This is the mortgage-backed securities prices right now, okay? If you look, this red line right here, the red dot, that was Monday. And the way the mortgage-backed securities prices work, if the price is going up, our rates are going down. So when you heard them talking about quantitative easing, you know, the last 12, 15 years, it was the government buying the mortgage-backed securities that pushed these prices up, that made the rates go down because you had more buyers, you know, buying the securities. So the prices went up, the rates went down. Well, this is a snippet from from August till today. And you can see as the price goes down, our rates get worse. Well, we've pretty much had nothing but worse since the 1st of August. And let's go back and look. You know, if you looked at a 6-month chart, this is from, you know, the beginning of May, you know, continual trend for prices to get worse, which means, you know, the rates are going up. So this going, you know, down is not good for us. We want this trend line to be going up. This goes up, then our rates get better. If you can look right now where we are today, right now on the day, we want this in green if we can get it in green. This means our prices are going up, our rates are getting better. Right now we're having a little bit of a slow day, but we had a great week last week. The other thing that people look at for rate information is the 10-year treasury. And this, if you look at the chart on this from last week, you can see, let's see, this was Thursday, the week before, I think on the 26th, we were approaching 5 on the 10-year. And you can see last week alone, it dropped almost all the way down to 4.5. So we had a big week on this. Now, the way this works is typically there's a difference of about 1.5 between the 10-year treasury and the 30-year mortgage rates. Right now, it's more like about probably 2.5 to 3% difference. But this works in that as this is going down, our mortgage rates would be going down with it. Normally, it would be within 1.5%. So, you know, on a normal market, if we're at 4.5 on the 10-year, maybe we're at 6, 6.25 on the 30-year. Right now, where it's about a 3-point swing. So we need that gap to close with, you know, more economic data that's going to pull it closer together. If you look back at what happened last week, there was an inflation report that came in a little bit better than expected, and jobs reports 2 days last week came in with, you know, more unemployment, more people filed for initial unemployment than expected. And there were fewer jobs created than expected. The Fed's been waiting on that for months and months and months. because what they're wanting to do as they're raising the Fed funds rate to slow inflation, the jobs reports that keep coming in better than expected show more people working. More people working means more people earning income. More people earning income means more people spend. So they've been waiting for, you know, an off jobs report. Stops talking about raising the Fed funds rate, then that helps our rates get better. Just for, you know, what has happened in the past, this is the Fed rate hikes since March of last year. And you can see it's hard to believe that we were still at, you know, basically zero on the Fed fund rates in March of last year. And between then and July, it raised 5 percentage points. We haven't had any more increases, so hopefully we don't. I know there's a potential of one that you're talking about before the end of the year. I think the economic data will continue to be bad, which will probably keep them from raising the rate again. If that's the case, then, you know, you should see our rate start to come down a little bit better after that too. Let's kind of go in real quick and see where we are rate wise. Everybody always wants to know. I'm gonna price one out for you guys. So let's say, so we do 300,000, let's do a 350 purchase price. If we got a 350 purchase, normal people, most people are putting 5% down right now. We got 332.5 loan amount, 350 purchase price. We're gonna keep escrows. Let's go with 760 credit score. And let's see. DTI doesn't matter anymore. They never took this out. When they came out with the rate adjustments at the beginning of the year, they were going to go with DTI as an impact on rates. That never came to fruition, but they've never taken it out of the pricing engine. Let's take Cabarrus County. And we'll stay conventional. So this is a 30-year fixed right now. Rates haven't posted yet. That's why it shows that it expired. It'll post about 10:30 this morning. So a regular 30-year Fannie Mae right now. Price here that a lender wants to get is 100. So when you hear people talk about buying down rates, when you look at a rate sheet, you can see here right now, the rate at 8% is 100.027. So what that means is this is the price that a lender has to have. When you look at buying down a rate, normally it's people paying, you know, 1 point origination for that rate. So if you look, what I would look on the rate sheet is what is my closest to 99 to get the borrower that better rate. So in this case, I'd be at like 7.49. I would charge 0.818 points. That would get us the better rate and the lower payment. Now, I'm one that I ask my buyers a ton of questions. I don't want to put them in a situation where they're paying points or multiple points if they're going to refinance or they're going to sell this house in the first year or two. And majority of the people that have bought this year, my assumption is they're going to refinance once rates drop. So you're looking probably 12 to 24 months. So when I have discussions with them and I send them a spreadsheet, I'm sending them the rate at 7.49, but I'm also sending them the rate, you know, at 7.99 because you can see the difference. You know, my cash at closing, if you look at the discount dollars, at 7.99, I'm only having them bringing $10 extra to close, and I would eat that. I wouldn't even charge them that. At 7.49, they're bringing $2,700 more to the closing table for a difference of what? You're at 23.23 versus 24.37. So they're bringing $2,700 to save maybe $115 a month. And I'll ask them, do you think you'll be in this loan in 12 months? You know, if they're going to refinance, then let's don't pay the points. Let's take the higher payment. You know, we'll look at it that way. The one thing that has become very prevalent as rates go over 7, I know you guys have all heard of the buy downs. So what we are doing for the rest of the year, our office only, this is not a Fairway thing. This is a Fairway Concord, a Fairway South Park Charlotte, and a Fairway Raleigh, our 3 offices. We're going to fund a 1.0 buy down for anybody that goes under contract with us in November and December. So let's see how that impacts the rate. First, let's look at this real quick. When you look at what to do to get a 1 point better rate, so go back to where it's 7.99, you know, at par price to no additional points. To get a 1 point better rate, you're at 6.99, but look, it costs them 2.5 points, or it costs them $8,409 at closing. So with the buy down, the way that this is going to play out, we're going to fund the buy down. So we're going to get them a rate. Let's see what that rate looks like. If we go to the 1.0 buy down. So I'm going to do the Fannie Mae buy down right here. So let's look back at, if we're at 7.99, I would charge them this point 153 to be at my par 100. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to credit them the subsidy. So they're going to have a rate of 6.99 the first year. So instead of them again paying, you know, $85, $86, $8,700, I'm going to get them a 6.99 rate the first year, 1 point better than that buy down, and he's going to pay it. So that hopefully will help people to make it. I feel like if people in starting rate 1.0 buy get you there, that'll help people make a decision. I don't think people worry about their paying as much for the house as much what their monthly payment is. You know, go to a car dealer and buy Corvettes in the showroom. How much am I spending? You want to know what the payment is. Right now it's high, especially on that kind of stuff. But that's what I feel like will benefit and get people, you know, to move a little bit better. The one thing that I think we all have to stop is there's many people talking negative things in the market, and it's still a good time to buy in the right situation. And that's where it's important that they talk to you. You ask the right questions. They talk to us. You know, people automatically assume if rates are high, it means there's not a good deal out there. There are plenty of good deals out there. You know, there are situations where the seller's paying closing costs in a lot of different situations. And that helps, you know, first time home buyers get into a new house with little or no money out of pocket. You know, we've closed 3 or 4 in the last couple of weeks where we got them $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 back at closing using the 15K deal. You can do that with USDA right now as well if they're getting 100% financing with, you know, some seller paid closing costs. So there's a lot going on. I wanted to kind of share this with you too. A couple things here I thought were kind of interesting. If you look back historically, man, it doesn't even go back to my birth date, 1970. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of old now. They don't even have me on the chart anymore. But this is historical 30-year fixed rates according to Freddie Mac from 1971. And you can see, you know, we've had periods, a lot of periods where we were higher than we are now. The issue that you have facing you right now with your jobs is you got, you know, basically anybody 35 and under doesn't really know a mortgage rate over 5%, probably over 4.5%. But for the most part, you know, anybody under 35 doesn't really know a rate over 5%. So you've got to be able to share with those people what else happens when the Fed rate is higher. You know, look at what has happened to CD rates in the past 2 years. You know, prior to 2021, 22, I doubt you were seeing any kind of CD rates that were paying, you know, 4.95, 5.3, 4.7. So yes, you're paying more on your mortgage, but you can put your money into different savings accounts that are going to earn more for you right now. So when people ask, should I put more money down? Every $1,000 you put towards the house, still with rates where they are, is only $6 per thousand on the payment. So every $10,000 is only saving them $60. So what I look at is the big picture. I look at, you know, I'm pulling your credit. I see you've got 2 car payments. One of them's $975. One of them's $1,100. And that's normal right now. You know, the normal things to see on people's credit reports, high car payments, and it's usually more than one of them. Lots of credit card debt. You know, credit card debt across the nation is higher than it's ever been. And then right now, people have student loans starting back up. So what I see happening over the next few years is as people are having to make more student loan payments, they're getting into more credit card debt. They have higher car payments they can't pay off quickly. You're going to see some of these folks in rates at 2.5% and 3% and 3.5%, but have a ton of equity that are going to start to sell to pay off the additional debt to basically start over with a new mortgage payment. And to me, it makes more sense to sell and do that because I can use the additional 20% equity on a cash out refinance. You're only going to be able to go up to about 80%. But if you sell it, you can use it all and then start over in a new mortgage. I feel like that's what's going to happen to a lot of the 2.5% to 3.5% rates. People aren't going to be able to stay in them because they have too much debt otherwise with some of what they're doing.
Hey, Terry, this is Sherry Arkerbright. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
You mentioned that buy down that your office is offering. If we would also be able to negotiate and get the seller to do, seller concessions, pay buyer closing costs,
That would help too.
additional
Yeah.
buy down, so we could possibly get like 2% lower rate.
What I would do on those cases, depending on how much you get, is look at doing the 2-1 buy down or the 3-2-1 buy down. Because let me see if I can get back to where those rates were. Let me take out the buy down out of this. When you talk about doing a permanent buy down and you're looking at paying points, people normally pay 1 just because that's what most lenders typically charge. They typically will charge 1. But when you look at paying more to buy the rate down further, remember, I got to have 100 right here. So if I'm at 98.341, I was at 99.182. So I'm paying like 3/4 of a point more, but it only benefits me by 1/4% in rate. And you can see that payment difference is only what, like $60? It's not a huge difference for that extra money that I'm paying here. And I'm going from $2,700 in discount points to basically doubling it to $5,500, but it's only saving me another $60. When you look at the 2-1 buy down, if we're at 799, 599 is not even on this rate sheet. So you can't pay enough points because here at 6.375, you're paying 4.87 points to get to this rate. And it's not a huge difference in payment there. You're talking what, $300 maybe? And that's where I don't think it makes sense to use big money right now to do permanent buy down. Because if you do permanent buy down, you're not getting a 2 or 3 point difference in the rate like you are on the 3-2-1 and the 2-1 buy down. So if they're talking about that kind of money, then I think you got to look at temporary buy down. Everybody knows, does everybody know on the temporary buy down, the way the subsidy is used? Let me show you this. I'm going to send you guys this calculator because I get this question a lot. How much does my seller need to give on a buy down subsidy to allow the buyer to do it? So this calculator will tell you that. So let's say we got a $300,000 loan amount, a 30-year fixed. We're going to do a 2-1 buy down. And let's just say the rate is, we had it at what, 7.99 with no points? So the amount that the seller would have to pay is this amount right here. That total subsidy is $7,293. And the way that is applied, it would give the buyer a $402.48 cheaper payment the first year, and then $205 cheaper the second year, and then it goes to the full payment. When these payments are pulled out in this subsidy account, once the buyer goes to refinance, whatever's left in this account goes towards their balance on the refinance. So on a temporary down, you get to use them initially by the rate, cheaper payment, but also whatever fund. I remember there was 23 to start with. If we're 402 a month and we're 6 months into it, that's what, $2,400 less. So we're at what, $4,800 remaining in the subsidy account, and that goes to pay down on their, it's when they refi, so they get the benefit of it. So you're not losing it, you get to use it later. If you do a full permanent buy down, and I have seen some builder docs with people being charged like 4 points just for the rate. And it burns me up to see that, because they're not getting a rate that's in the 5s or the 6s. You know, they were getting like a 7.125 at that point with those points. You know, somebody the other day, I think, had 5 1/4 on a 5-year ARM, but paying 4 points to get it. And I said, talk to them about doing the buy down, the temporary, because then you get to use those additional funds later. And there's some builders paying some big bucks. I mean, another agent I work with, his daughter closed on one in Charleston last week, and she got like $33,000 from the builder down there. You know, if you're getting that much in assistance, you shouldn't have anything you need at closing other than the down payment. So, but this is a pretty good chart here. I'll send you guys this. If you go in, like with us, what we're doing with the 1.0 buy down, you know, if we had those same numbers, basically we're giving them $2,400 to save $200 a month on that. I like the 3-2-1. The 3-2-1 buy down obviously costs more because you got the third year into the mix. This would be for like a house that's been on the market probably 40, 50, 60 days. You know, they're ready to lower the price of a house. But if you give the buyer $14,000, they can lower their payment almost $600 the first year. So these are things that will help you get deals. We're doing a ton of these. The other thing that's important, I always look back when stuff is slow, what can I sell right now? What is moving? And the 15K deal is moving. You know, the rate is at 7.5%, which is probably right now pretty close to what the market rate is. But for the longest time, this rate was better. You know, if you brought your own money for a down payment, you were getting a higher rate than you were with the 15K from the state. And I mean, if you look, there's a decent number of homes in Cabarrus and Rowan that would fit first time home buyer. You know, if you look 225 to 3.25, 350, this program will go up to 480, you know, but it's going to ultimately depend on what they make as far as income. Can they qualify at those amounts? And then the income limits went up a little bit on these as well. So it makes it a little bit easier for some people to qualify. If we're in Cabarrus County, you know, a household of 1 or 2, if they're at 102,000, they can qualify, or 118 for a 3 or more. So the income limits being a little bit higher help as well. I thought this was kind of interesting. I heard this too. I've even said this. You know, I feel like next year mortgages, the rates will probably get a little bit better because it's a presidential election year. But if you go back historically through, you know, election years, there hasn't been much change. It really hadn't had any kind of rate impact on, you know, who was voted in, who wasn't. So I don't feel like that's going to have a big deal on it. You know, I think probably a lot of us think there probably could be, but historically that's not been the case. I just feel like what's going to happen is overall, you know, rates are going to dip at some point. Every analyst out there is kind of pointing to it. And it's what we need. They've got to get some balance back to the market. I would like to see the government incentivize builders to build more affordable. You know, builders won't build stuff that's 250 to 350 because they don't make any money on it. But to me, to stabilize the market, we need more inventory in that price that's, you know, good quality houses. So, you know, that to me is more important than getting rates back to 2 and 3%. I'm 53. I don't know that we ever see rates at 2 and 3 again.
Terry, one thing I thought of talking about next year with everybody, and we heard this in Savannah, and I've said this before, but I think 90% of homeowners right now, 90% of them are in a rate that starts with a 6 or lower.
Yep.
So who wants to get out of that? You know, but the longer we stay in this high 7s and 8 interest rate, the more the demand builds. People get antsy. People want to move. And I think as soon as those rates drop to the mid 6s or even in the 5s, I think the floodgates are going to open again. And that us as agents, we need to be prepared because business will start coming back. And if it goes into the 5s, it could come back really, really fast.
It's definitely a time where you want to stay in touch with your database.
Mhm.
You got stuff coming up right now, Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, Valentine's Day, not long after that, New Year's, if they're not buying in the next 2 or 3 months, it doesn't mean they're not buying, start early spring. So do what you got to do to stay in front of your people. Nothing's going to make you madder than to see one of your clients post on Facebook the house that they just bought with the agent on the sign that they called in the front yard. And it was a friend of yours, So it's harder right now because the rewards don't come as quick, but you got to stick with it because, once this breaks, probably early spring, you're going to have a lot of people that probably from y'all's side that have, dues and stuff, fees that you got to pay at the first of the year that are going to decide they don't want to pay those. And what I look at, I think there's 100,000 fewer lenders right now. The lenders that are left in the game in the spring next year are all going to be good lenders. Just like with you guys, there's all going to be good agents, and we're all going to be fighting for the same, deals at that point too. The difference is there's not going to be people that drop the ball. Everybody's going to be top of the game because that's who's able to survive this. So we all have to be on track and ready to roll when it does break. And it'll break. We had a slowdown like 2019 right before COVID hit, and you could tell it got slower. Rates will turn on a dime and it will be so unexpected. We probably should have gotten, and I hate to say this, turmoil in geopolitical stuff, benefits mortgage rates usually. The Israeli stuff right now should probably have a bigger impact on rates, but they're still dealing with inflation and everything else. But we got a bump from the initial Israeli stuff that first day, and that's probably why we're in a little bit better position than we are, we are now than what we could have been. So I remember 2008 and 9, we would have swings in the mortgage rates of 3/4 of a point in a day. Usually you're lucky if you get any movement of 1/4 of a point a day. We had swings back then that the rate got better by 3/4 of a point in a couple of hours, and all of it was totally unexpected. So it's going to happen, and it's going to be there again. You just got to be ready for it when it does.
Anybody got any questions for Terry or myself before we wrap it up? Terry, we do appreciate
What are
your time.
y'all's fears? What are y'all hearing? Are y'all hearing everybody's worried about volume, but we've still got deals coming in. What do we need to do to move on?
I hate to ask.
Some extras.
I hate to ask Terry, but could you go back to the slide that had the quarter 1 through 4 rates for 2024? Thank you.
Was it this one?
No, I believe it was the one the very
No,
first
it
one
was
put up.
in the beginning.
This one?
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Any information
that we have to get
Thank
to
you.
the upper 5s and 6s. I feel like once we get into rates that start with a 6, you're going to see it start to turn around again, because people get pent up, and there's people that have been out since 2020, and they're 3 or 4 years something different. And don't discredit the amount of debt that people's debt is going to have a big impact on they do going forward, because car payments are not $300 and $400. I hesitate to ask anybody what the car payment is now, because everybody tells me 800, 1,000, 1,200. I saw 1,500 last week. You know, those are mortgage payments for vehicles. So there's going to be a lot of people that need to get out of debt situations, and the way that it's going to be refinanced, because everybody's sitting on a mound of it. Either that or sell. And like I said, to me, the client that I talk to now, if they call me about refinancing, hey, have you looked at anything else? You know, are you interested in moving? Do you think you're going to move in the next 12 to 24 months? Yeah, I think that's the plan. All right, then let's start looking at that plan and sell the house, because you can use more of the equity to pay off the debt. But I feel like that's where a lot of the 2.5%, 3.5% rates go, is for people paying off debt and getting out of situations.
Any other questions for Terry or myself?
Don't forget about the 1.0 buy down that we're doing. You got people that are working with other lenders, tell them to call us, get a quote. We're basically paying, you know, depending on the loan amount, it's somewhere probably between 2,000 and 3,000 for them to get a better rate the first year. If it is a government loan and we do a buy down, we need the seller to finance the subsidy for that. But what we're going to do is we're going to match the subsidy with seller paid with closing costs. So even though the government loans will not allow a lender paid temporary buy down, they will only allow the seller to pay it. But if the seller pays it for your client, then we will match the amount of that subsidy to go towards their closing. So that is actually a better deal for them if they use a government loan, because they're going to get funds from the seller, they're going to get funds from us, and they're going to show up at the closing table with less money they need at closing.
All right, anybody got questions?
If you guys need anything, feel free to call me anytime.
Terry, we appreciate your time, man.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
Y'all take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.